Alright, what's going on, guys? Hope y'all are doing well. So this video is going to be going over every strategy for every Cold War Zombies boss fight. Those of you who have been a really long time viewer on the channel may remember this video. I made one of these for IW Zombies back in the day, and it did pretty well, and you guys seem to really enjoy it, and I had a lot of fun making it. So I decided to do another one for Cold War because it's just like, it was a really good time putting this one together. But yeah, essentially this is going to go over every single boss fight in Cold War Zombies, and we have a grand total of 6 main bosses, which each like different functioning mechanics and strategies on how to complete it. So whenever you're playing this Cold War Zombies mode, whether right now or even years into the future, this is going to be relevant and will help you get every single one of these done. So if you guys do enjoy the video today, I would really appreciate a thumbs up. That would be great. Like I said, it did take quite a while to put together, so it would be very much appreciated. And of course, if you are new to the channel, subscribe for more zombies content just like this and plenty of other stuff. But this video is going to cover everything from D Machine all the way up to DLC 4 Forsaken and all the boss fights in between. It will not cover the main Easter eggs, of course. If you want to know how to do the Easter eggs themselves, I'll have some links in the description to help you out. But other than that, well, let's get into these boss fights, starting with D Machine. So of course, D Machine is the first map on disc, and the first boss fight isn't even really a boss fight in this map. And those of you who have played it will sort of understand, but basically you are protecting Orlov, which is the big, like, toxic zombie in the middle with the hazmat suit on, who's actually going to be taking down 3 different generators around the map, and you have to essentially destroy the facility. Now, Orlov does have a health bar, but in this boss fight, he cannot take any damage himself whatsoever. So your only job is to protect him perfectly, and the way you do that, in my opinion, the Spaz 12 or the Gallo shotgun is really nice. Also, the Die Electro Bolt, which you will make during the Easter egg, assuming you get up to the boss fight. Pack-a-punching it and bringing this in is a really good call, because with that combined with Ring of Fire, you get pretty much all the time in the world to gun anything down that's approaching the ring. If anything does get into the ring, it will also most likely die, and assuming you protect him perfectly, he will just like literally take down the generators in about 6 seconds. Now that's easier said than done, obviously, because you can run into a few complications. Sometimes you can get overrun with megatons. A lot of the, like, you know, bigger ones can get in there and disrupt him a little bit, or just allow other zombies to get in. He'll go into this weird like defensive animation if even like one zombie just gets too close, which will completely halt the progress on the coolant deactivation. So it's very like imperative that you keep everything off him as perfectly as possible, which again is somewhat hard to do. One thing you can do, specifically on the second and third phase of the boss fight, seems to be most effective. If you're playing by yourself, it's not really an option, but if you're playing solo, have somebody lay down a sentry gun literally right behind him, and then go back to doing your thing using Ring of Fires or otherwise to protect him. And if he is getting hit a little bit, it's not the biggest deal in the world, because again, you won't like lose progress, or he will not die at all. It's just going to take slightly longer for that deactivation to happen. The last and final one is the one you got to pay attention to, because it's the most cramped one, and it's also in the dark. Like, the lighting actually plays a pretty big role here, because sometimes there'll be a zombie hitting him that you just physically cannot see. The bar will not make progress, and you won't understand why. Also, if you have the opportunity, you can of course repair armor here, and it's worth getting dead wire on your gun if available, because primarily what you're going to be fighting against, or at least the main presence of the enemy, are going to be megatons, and they're of course weak to dead wire. So if you have that, the Pack-a-Punch machine is always at your disposal. If you can place it on your weapon, it's absolutely worth doing. If not, the Electro Bolt pretty much takes care of them pretty easily and makes quick work of them, but it's good to have on like your primary if you are running the shotgun. Also, another great piece of equipment you can bring in are Gersh devices to cover his back. It will pretty much kill literally anything that approaches too close. You don't want to throw it too close to Orlov, however, because even if a zombie is technically sucked up by the Gersh device, if it like comes too close to him, he'll go into that defensive animation again, and you'll lose some of the time on that. But unless you're like speedrunning or you want to get this done as soon as possible, it doesn't really matter. You can take all the time in the world you need on this, as long as you yourself don't die. You'll complete it, however, after doing those 3 sequences, you'll see the white flash, and now the last part is to escape. And of course, this can even nowadays be a little bit tricky sometimes, because all of these zombies spawn at once. Every choke point gets blocked off. You can either choose to wait a second and sort of back up and then kind of go up the railing like you do in this gameplay, or you can charge straight through the middle and just shoot the zombie as soon as he spawns and then grab the ledge. You can do pretty much either way, it doesn't really matter. But also, if you have speed cola, you can fire while sprinting, and you should definitely take advantage of that if you are playing D Machine. This is the route I always recommend going for the escape as well. It just seems to be the easiest in my opinion. But once you make it back, you'll get the Raptor 1 countdown, and then you can of course go ahead and just physically go and escape, and then that's one boss fight down. Alright, moving on to Firebase Z. I'm not sure if this is the most embarrassing boss fight in Zombies. I really can't tell. I looked at my timeline as I'm editing this video, and this clip, literally I'm starting from the cutscene, and it's only like 30 seconds long. All I'm going to say for Firebase Z is bring in the Tech 9 and have a Ring of Fire. fire and literally just do this. I'm going to let the gameplay speak for itself. You don't really need to know anything too technical about this fight. You quite literally press 2 buttons after you press another 2 buttons, and then you win the game. Outbreak, the mode that people either love or despise. No matter what you think about it, I think this has inarguably probably the best boss fight in Cold War. The Legion fight has so many interesting properties and mechanics that you might not think about that make this boss fight very enjoyable. So the way Legion works is he has 3 separate distinct health phases, and in order to even access or deal damage to him, you have to knock him down first and foremost and shoot an orb that will come out of his body. And the best way to do this is to deal as much damage as you can while he's in the corners of the stages here, just like in the middle of the area. You have to shoot the center of his chest with something relatively high powered. A Tech 9 here is great, or an M16 is really good. Any shotguns, unfortunately, really don't have the range to get up there, but you can shoot the orbs with that, which we'll get to in a second. There's a very strong variety of weapons you can use to just knock down his armor. He can only be downed when he's up against one of 3 spots near the wall, as you can see right here. You knock him down and 3 orbs will come out of him. You need to focus fire on one of those orbs. Pick one at a time. Generally go for the one that's highest up first, because the range sometimes can have a bit of a damage fall off, and the first phase is always easiest, so you may as well get that one out of the way while it's easy. Do the same thing, rinse and repeat, damage his armor, knock him down again. Interestingly about this fight, some of you may not know this, if you bring a wonder weapon into the fight, such as a Ray K or a ray gun, it's going to make the boss fight harder. And you might ask how? It will increase the enemy wave spawns and also like elite and specials. You can literally test it out, and there's like, you can document this kind of thing. It's one of those things, I have it in my gameplay because I wanted to make this boss fight as hard as physically possible, doing it on round 22 plus bringing wonder weapons in, and it's very difficult. I'm also going to recommend you bring in either Ether Shroud or Frenzied Guard. If you're playing solo, those are the goats. You can use something like Tesla Storm, even Healing Aura if you're playing co-op. That doesn't really matter. There's no really one best specialist to bring in here, but I prefer Frenzied for the armor regeneration. But generally speaking, if you want to make this boss fight as easy as possible, bring in something like the dual wield AMP 63s. They're pistols, and they deal a ton of damage to Legion. They have enough range to take him down and also break the orbs and everything. They're literally a godsend for this fight, and it will not make the boss fight harder as you don't have a wonder weapon in, but it's just something to consider. Either way, this Legion fight is the one I'm most impressed with, I think, in Cold War so far. Definitely one of the more interesting and fun fights, and also just like genuinely challenging fights that not everybody, I don't think, has completed at this point, but it's something I certainly recommend. It's one of the most fun I think you can have in Cold War Zombies. But anyway, it's a great fight. Definitely go and try it out, and this is, I think, the best way to get it done. Anyways, moving on to the second Outbreak Easter egg. Now, while this Easter egg is not quite as intriguing as the Legion fight is, it's still got a boss fight, and it's certainly better than Firebase Z's Orda, which technically still is the boss in here, but we'll get to that in a minute. The first like phase of this boss fight actually is to escort a rover up to the fight itself, and the reason I'm including this is because this sequence can be fairly difficult. If you're doing this rover, your best friend's Flamethrower is great, and also Frenzied Guard is like absolutely crucial. Ring of Fire is not going to do a whole lot here, and neither is Ether Shroud. Something like Tesla Storm or even Healing Aura will be good for the sequence, but other than that, all you have to do is defend the rover from zombies as they're going to attack both you and the rover. If it takes too much damage, your game is literally over, so just don't let that happen. It's priority number 1. Monkey Bombs are also great, as are Gersh devices. It's about a minute to 2 minute long sequence, and I've played both this Easter egg and Legion multiple times, and as far as I can tell, the Wonder Weapon like property, which spawns more zombies, does not apply for this fight or for this sequence, so keep that in mind. Feel free to use anything you want, Ray Gun, Ray K, or any other weapon as well. Should not have that much bearing on your fight overall, but the real boss fight is after you activate the intel and you get over to Orda. So of course this is the same type of Orda from Firebase Z. However, this one is a timed boss fight. You only have about 5.5 minutes, and this Orda moves around, so it's already a lot more difficult than Firebase Z, and the amount of enemies you get is also significantly higher. Like I said though, I don't think the Wonder Weapon thing applies, but feel free to use something like a shotgun, pop Frenzied Guard immediately, and get in real close. Jump near Orda as close as you can to deal the maximum amount of damage. You can then back off and either try to farm another Frenzied Guard to do the same thing, or you can just continue dealing incremental damage to Orda. He has a lot of attacks that will absolutely delete you at close range, so be very mindful of his slams. You can pretty much telegraph them when they're coming out. They're very slow moves, but they do hit very hard. Also, Orda does have a move in which he's able to heal himself for extra HP. He'll go to the like like ethereal pool in which he spawned from, he'll drop his hand in it and start recovering health. If this happens in your game, you want to drop everything and immediately get up to the hand that's put into the ground and start shooting it. He'll then back off and stop recovering HP. That can make your fight a lot more like annoying than it should be, but basically you can shut it down pretty quickly if you're efficient enough. You also do have to wipe out the rest of the zombies on the field for this boss fight to actually complete, but you can get it done in literally about a minute, so it's pretty fast and not cool as Legion, but pretty dang cool nonetheless. So coming up after that, we have Marauder Toten. This is like probably almost as cool as the Legion fight, maybe not quite on the same page, but it's got the most amount of sequences out of any boss fight in Cold War. You were fighting the Dark Ether version of Valentina, which was alluded to like in the Easter egg itself, and this boss fight is pretty straightforward, although there are some things you definitely need to know about it. Basically, Valentina is going to have one overshield that can be broken fairly easily with the regular Cerberus. It's definitely worth upgrading this weapon completely. Don't really bring any of the variants, you don't need them. Simply, this gun can carry you through the entire fight. You can use this to pop shields, and then immediately you can use a death machine to deal insane damage and pass through the phase very quickly. Now, a few things to note. This is one of the few boss fights in Cold War. There are some exceptions, but a lot of them don't really scale with rounds. Like, for example, D-Machine doesn't really get that much harder on round 100 than if you do it on, like, round 30, but this fight does. So, Valentina will scale in health if you go higher in rounds. It's absolutely worth doing this on as low round as possible from my experimentation. Maybe you don't have to worry about doing it on, like, a super low round. Just, like, don't do it on round 100 unless you're looking for, like, a real challenge. But you can basically just count on every single sequence. You need to break the shield and do about, like, a quarter of damage. Eventually, you're going to get, like, immune shots. She's not going to be taking any more damage, and then she'll move to a new location. Also, she does have a wipe mechanic. If you see this on your screen, and also, like, a loud auditory sound charging up, you definitely want to get behind cover. That will insta-kill you if you're not in cover when that does come out, so be very mindful of that. Also, it's worth noting, in between sequences of this fight, you have the opportunity to go and, like, buy stuff. You can get extra armor if you want to. You can replace your death machine if you've already used it, or get Gerst devices, replace perks, anything like that that you need to do. In the meantime, I recommend getting done before you begin the next sequence. There is, like, a time limit, maybe it's like 2 minutes, where it'll just throw you into the sequence, but it's enough to get done whatever you can possibly conceive of. But you need to do this about 4 or 5 times until you end up all the way back where you started in the main, like, big secret room to do the final boss fight. Now, you will take her down here after she has, like, her last bar of HP. Again, similar premise, straightforward. You don't have to do anything differently here. However, my recording, I accidentally stopped it after I killed Valentina. You do have to also escort Klaus into the back of the machine. You basically just defend him as he walks all the way through. This is worth using literally everything you have left. Escort Klaus after you've killed Valentina, and then you'll be given the cutscene. In this fight in particular, both Ring of Fire and Frenzied Guard are quite literally your best friends. So definitely, if you're playing solo, use one of those, as Ring of Fire will block projectiles, the one that Valentina shoots, and then also otherwise projectiles, but Frenzied Guard, of course, to replace armor, and just slow down the zombies generally. It's also really good for the Klaus step, but I don't think you'll have any problems on this fight whatsoever. Alright, and last but certainly not least, we have Forsaken, the final DLC for a boss fight. This is led in with an escort step very similar to the second Outbreak Easter egg, although you need to get fuel and crystals on the side to bring it here. But in this battle, we take on literally the Forsaken himself, the big man. So this one is, it's pretty interesting. I don't think it's quite as in-depth as Legion is, but it's, like, still fairly difficult, and you definitely don't want to underestimate it. It's probably the second best boss fight in this game, in my opinion, because it's got some things that you may not know about. So obviously, the first thing you should do is focus on his overshields, and at least in the first phase of the boss fight, these are going to be located on his left and right shoulders. I do recommend some kind of, like, long-range gun like an M16, or you can even use the, like, SMG part of the wonder weapon, the Chrysalax, in this particular boss fight. But either way, you need to deal enough damage to pop the overshields on both of his shoulders. You'll know it's happened when it's no longer blue and you see, like, a red smoke coming out, and also literally just the visual of the Forsaken shield itself. If you're using something like an M16 or attack rifle, it's worth noting you probably want the extended barrel on, because it will be a lot more merciful, and just, like, you'll have a lot more room to play with the damage fall off. It won't be so severe if you don't have it on. Otherwise, you got to get really close to the Forsaken, which I definitely don't recommend. But once both of his overshields are popped, the next thing you have to do is fill up all the souls where Samantha Maxis is. And if she gets overrun, she's going to switch locations, but it can either be, like, at the very back of the town, or she'll move up a little bit closer to the Forsaken, and that puts you kind of in danger. But either way, none of the spots are entirely safe, but they're fairly easy to do. The soul box itself is also quite big, so you have no problems there. You just have to kill a bunch of zombies as the Maxis essence level charges up, and it will allow you to use one of the guns here on the side, and you need to focus fire on one of the shoulders until the boss fight, or at least until that particular chunk is totally gone. Otherwise, if you mess up and if you fail it, he'll regenerate his HP, so you don't want to let that happen. The second phase of the boss fight, he'll get his overshields back, but you just need to break it on his stomach. You can do this very easily with a death machine. It literally completely demolishes it. Same deal as well as far as the filling up soul boxes with Samantha Maxis. You can honestly throw a Gersh device wherever the soul box is, indicated by that, you know, big purple cloud, and then that will gather all of the resources and souls that you'll need for that. There are an attack that you'll definitely want to watch out with the Forsaken, and that's like these freeze tornadoes. Those are very dangerous, not because they deal a lot of damage, but it can allow the horde to catch up with you. So be very careful about that attack in particular. I've had a little bit of trouble with that one sometimes, but otherwise his attacks aren't too dangerous, except for some of like the orbs that he'll spawn as well. But honestly, once you're on the gun, you're pretty much invincible, and you don't have to worry about anything at all. You just need to shoot the chest in the latter part, and then of course you have to finish it off with the headshot. If you're taking damage in the gun, don't worry, you actually can't die while doing this, so if you make it to the thing, you're going to be all good. Once you deplete the final health bar, congratulations, you have also beaten the Forsaken, and if you've done it all the way up to this point, then you have beat literally every boss fight in Cold War. At this point in the game, you don't have to worry about dying. The sequence will play it automatically, and you'll get the cutscene. Anyways, guys, that is literally every single boss fight in Cold War Zombies and a strategy on how to beat them. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I did put a lot of time into this one, so if you did enjoy, I would really appreciate a thumbs up, and of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and let me know in the comment section, what is your favorite boss fight in Cold War overall, out of all of these choices? I would love to know, but have a great rest of your day, guys. I do stream on Twitch if you want to come over there and hang out. It's a great place to be, but other than that, have a great one, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.